the regular board meeting of August 15th to order. I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please. Scott Ruggles, absent. Liz Smith.
Present.
Mike Paul.
Present.
Andrea Voorhees.
Present.
Mike Roman.
Here.
Mr. Lilly's here. Mr. Cole. Here. Looking for an approval of the agenda or change amendments.
I have an amendment. Go ahead, Terry.
The supervisor would like to make the following recommendations. First one being to withdraw item 10E. Second recommendation, to add the treasurer's report to item 6F, dated 8/15/17, and also add item 10H, property committee recommendations. Make a motion to approve with corrections.
I have an amendment. I'd like to amend the agenda to include the library's formal request to a supervisor and clerk dated Thursday, August 3rd, formally requesting the township to vote on the resolution required for the township to issue the bonds the voters approved last year.
That was declined because I believe it's premature.
I'd like to formally move it as an amendment to the agenda.
Vote on it.
We can vote on if we want to bring it onto the agenda or not.
Right.
Very well, Mr. Clerk.
That's all the items I have.
Okay, all right, so I guess we'll take a vote as to whether or not we will bring your request to the meeting.
We should actually make a motion on that request as well. So I'm just a little concerned because I have no idea what this agenda item is. So
Well, what I'm concerned about is they followed the proper procedures to get on the agenda. So if there's any resident or anyone in the township that follows the rules to get on the agenda in a timely fashion, I want to make sure they're heard and given that opportunity. So
Can I make a suggestion, Council? Since 10G is status of the Civic Center Consulting Project, through that discussion, could we add an agenda item after that, at that point in time of the meeting?
You can amend the agenda any way you want to amend the agenda as long as there's a vote and there's a majority. The only thing I'd indicate to you is it sounds like you're asking that the issue of the bond be considered, and there's nothing in front of them by way of any legal documents that bond counsel would have to prepare. So that would be my only concern. They wouldn't be able to take any legal action to move forward.
they requested the documents to start to be prepared in their formal request to Terry, to Clerk Lilly and Supervisor Kowal, and they didn't receive a response as to the documents.
That's not the case as to the documents you may
As
have
the
not
documents,
received.
yeah.
But this is a premature request because we are in the process right now of still doing due diligence and discovery in that entire area. And that's what one of the meetings today, which was the Civic Center Advisory Board's first meeting today, the launch meeting was today. And until that is concluded, I believe that's pertinent information that could have an effect on the decision process one way or the other.
I
Therefore, I believe
understand.
the request is incomplete.
I understand, but their request is specific. It's not about the Civic Center, it's about the bonds. And if the board is not prepared to move forward today, then I'd like to motion that those preparations begin, that those documents start to be compiled so that this board can start to prepare.
Well,
Just made a motion to amend the agenda.
we made a yes, we made a
So
motion.
currently on the table, there's a motion with Terry's requested changes
Changes.
as well as Liz's addition. So you can split up each request, vote on them separately if you want. You can vote on them all together, but there should be a vote on both motions.
I believe we should split that, and I believe we should vote on the agenda as is amended and noted by the clerk. I would like a motion.
Well, there is a motion already.
I made the
Support.
motion.
So for that specific
Right, right.
request,
Yes.
you want to support
I'll
that?
support that, absolutely.
Okay, I have motion, I have support. All in
Just
favor?
so that it's clear, what's the specific request that you're voting on?
This
Terry's
is
motion.
Terry's,
The specific request was to withdraw item 10E, to add the new list of bills dated 8/15/17, the addition of the treasurer's report, 8/15/17, and the addition of 10H, property committee recommendations.
I have motion, I have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And question to Ms. Trustees Smith?
Could you restate that motion? I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm just trying to assist the library. They asked me to help them out in this motion, so they've contacted Clerk Lilly and Supervisor Kowal on 2 occasions in writing, asking to be formally placed on our agenda, which was denied by Supervisor Kowal and not responded to by Clerk Lilly. So their email states, we are formally requesting the Township Board vote on the resolution required for the Township to issue the bonds the voters approved last year. So they would like to be a separate agenda item that's not under the umbrella of the Civic Center discussion, is my understanding.
Okay, the problem is, I never received that email, so I had no idea about it, and certainly have no information. And the specific request was to put it on for a vote, not to put on for discussion, because I have no concept what's involved in doing the bond resolution.
So I'd like to move that motion forward, and the second motion I'll move forward is to start the process. There are documents that need to be compiled in order for our board to issue the bonds, and I'd like that process to start.
Could we maybe do one motion at a time?
Sure, of
Instead of
course.
combining them like that?
I just was restating for you.
Okay, but just so that it's clear, the motion is to amend the agenda to add those items.
Yes.
Mr.
I
Lilly?
have no objections to adding discussion on for whatever purpose, but if it,
So that would
the
be,
discussion contains information that we have not yet received, then I would feel comfortable
I don't have any
myself with
information
just
either. I'm just
But you-
assisting. They asked as the liaison to assist them in getting on the agenda.
okay, so would you be ready tonight to vote to approve a resolution to sell bonds? Because that's what they asked for.
I can't speak to that, Mike. I can just speak to
You made the motion, however, to put that on the agenda.
But we're just voting on adding it to the agenda or not. This isn't the time to discuss.
Okay?
I'm lost.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what you.
They asked me to assist them in getting on our township agenda.
I understand.
They went through the
under-
proper procedures in a timely fashion to get on the agenda, but they were not placed on the August agenda.
You went through
I'm-
excuse me.
So I'm just
I'd like to
looking
interject.
to-
You went through a process, but you did not supply adequate information for any of the trustees or board members to have any discussion or any.
Because I'm not the requester, the library is.
Well,
They
then the library-
contacted you, not, I'm just reading their email.
I have yet to really receive anything in writing other than from you, from the library, okay?
Okay, I can't speak to that, Rick.
But you're the only, you did contact me,
I
though,
did.
yes, and you did request it. But I've not received anything from the library, unless it's fallen through the cracks somewhere, and I can't believe it went off as spam. So you're the only one that's made that request so far, okay?
And I received your response. I understand. Like I said,
But-
they asked me to assist them as their liaison
But you
to
have-
get on our agenda.
But you as a trustee are putting a request on to vote on something that we don't have any information on.
No, I'm just requesting to amend our agenda for they asked to be on. They asked. I'm just asking us to consider their request.
Well, what is the request then?
They sent an email on behalf of the library board. We're formally requesting the township board vote on the resolution required for the township issue the bonds the voters approved last year. Based on the advice of Mike Roman, we had a short discussion with the bond attorney back in April, and he indicated there were several documents that would be required. Included in the list was a timeline, budget, and narrative of the project. We have already provided a timeline and budget. If you need assistance in writing the narrative, we can help you. I mean, it goes on, but right now, we're just voting on getting it on the agenda or not.
Specific instructions to the library board as far as any and all procedures to get the bond approved was that they have to go through Mr. Lilly, and Mr. Lilly would forward documents signed to Dickinson Wright. So I don't know where you're getting that. I understand your.
I'm just reading an
okay.
email. It's not I'm not the author of the
I
email.
understand your request to get on the agenda to allow documents to start flowing through Mr. Lilly's office. I understand that, but I don't understand how we can vote on a bond request until all of that documentation has been approved by the bonding attorney.
And you may be correct, Mike. I'm just being the communication liaison of explaining what they requested. And they requested those two things to get on our agenda.
But now let's just talk about procedure. You as a board member can make a motion to amend the agenda.
Correct.
Are you as a board member asking that this agenda be amended? And what
Yes.
specifically do you want amended on the agenda? A line item that says discussion regarding the next step?
I think that it would probably, at this point, because if they had previously been put on the agenda when they asked, perhaps we would have had time to get those documents started or to have information to be prepared to vote this evening. But because none of that happened, it probably makes more sense to have a motion amending the agenda to start that process so that our board does have the proper information to make an educated vote.
To discuss that process?
Yes,
I would support that motion.
thank you.
Okay, so can you state the motion one more time, please, Liz?
All right, how about I so move to amend the agenda as a discussion item to start the process to prepare the bond paperwork for the library. That be sufficient, Lisa?
I think so. You want to add a discussion item under item 10I that says discussion regarding library bond
Documents?
issuance.
Process.
Process. That covers it, sure.
Yeah, and I'll support that.
We have motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving along. Public comment. At this point in time, any agenda item that is not on the agenda is to be addressed. If it is on the agenda, you'll have your time at that time to discuss it. In the meantime, you need to state your name and address and identify yourself clearly for the public. Anyone? Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Feems. I reside at 9095 Satellite in Village Acres subdivision.
Spell the last name, Dennis.
F-I-E, M as in Michael, S as in Sam. Of course, this is the first time you wondered about the spelling, but I guess we're getting to know each other better. I have some questions for the Township Board, and I don't really expect that you'll give me answers tonight. In fact, I have copies of the questions because I don't expect you to try and write them down. But I do want to put these questions into play, and I hope that in the near future that we will have answers to them. The Township Board has expressed a desire to create a Township Services Campus. To this end, the Township bought property on Elizabeth Lake Road. Does the Township Board have a plan for the financing of such a Township Center? If so, what is the plan? Does the Township have an estimated cost for building such a campus? Does the financial plan depend in any way on funds from the library bonds approved by the voters last year? Are there any documented authoritative estimates as to the savings, if any, to be found in a combined building? If there are any savings, how will they be allocated between the library and the Township? Does the Township Board or any of its members know of the source of a rumor that in excess of $2 million could be saved by having one building? I have heard that there may be a benefactor who might pay for a basement or a second story for the library building. Is there any truth in this assertion? I'm old enough to remember a television program called The Millionaire. I doubt any of you remember that. But he did give money to people, but he never did it for basements. It's sort of a strange thing. Are the appropriate township officials preparing the relevant documents to ensure the library bonds will be issued promptly when the approval is granted by the township board? So,
Thank you, John Slate. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Yes, dear. Oop.
Hi, Cheryl Herman, 5611 Teton Trail, White Lake, Michigan. With regards to the library bonding process, I understand that bonds have not been issued, and having gone to the library board meeting, that this previous one, there was some concern with regards to financing, at least with regards to them paying their bills and their budget. I'm concerned that that without them being able to pay their outstanding balances, I think they said they will suffer a deficit by October. That this delay in issuing the bond may result in the need for an emergency manager under our current statute. So I just wanted to raise that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Yes.
Good evening. Teresa Johns, 9105 Steep Hollow Drive. I'm at a loss how the library board, Friends of the Library, and even the liaison between the township and the library have been unwilling to come forth after months of research has shown not only in violation of MCL 1.438, Section 18.3, but an overwhelming amount of evidence concluding they have continued to cover up, misinform the public, and continue to spend taxpayer dollars knowing their money will run out in October. At the July 28th Library Board meeting, Mr. Russo showed the profit and loss of the library, concluding it would close in October. But what Mr. Russo failed to show is at the bottom of that same page, it clearly shows if they stop spending today, they will have the cash flow to carry them through this fiscal year. Here's exactly what Mr. Russo failed to show the public. And I have it here for anybody who wants to see it. It also is noteworthy that the library presented as a possible solution to this cash flow problem, the library not reimburse the township for the next 4 months, when the logical solution is the library to stop spending taxpayer money. Mr. Russo and the entire library board continues to deceive the public. The library's 2017 budget does not appropriate any funds for the building fund account. Not only did they spend in excess of a zero budgeted account, they also diverted funds from other accounts to pay for the building fund expenditures as they are now in a cash flow crisis. This is a serious violation of Michigan state statute. The libraries presented a slide that stated, and I quote, "Township corrects the problem they created by loaning funds or not collecting the amount we owe them." However, the board president stated that the library's cost estimates, which are required for the bond funding, are not yet complete. He also stated that the library is spending funds on legal fees because the library board continues to be educated on the processing. In his own words, he has admitted that, number one, they have not completed the process, and two, they didn't fully understand the process. This is clearly the fault of the library board, not the township. At a May 22, 2017 combined township library board meeting and the library in the township, the library accused the township of delaying the process of the bond in wanting to have a combined building. Or was it just a cover-up of their own financial mistakes? Mr. Roman stated, and Denise Stefanik from the library confirmed, that the bond process information was conveyed via email, and that she was aware that they needed cost estimates before going to the bond attorney May 22nd. As of July 28th, the library has not completed cost estimates. Yet, they continue to spend money in a non-appropriate account in violation of the Uniform Budgeting Act, continue to create a cash flow crisis which may cause the library to close, and continue to blame the township. In conclusion, the library board is an elected body, and I hold them fiscally accountable for their actions. It is the library board, as they keep telling us, they're an autonomous board. They are responsible to solve the problem, and their own analysis proves that this is something they can do easily. I have compiled a timeline to ensure all I am saying is truthful and can be fact-checked. I've also contacted the State Treasury Department, and they're also looking into it. Thank you.
I'd just like to clarify that I don't have anything to do with how the library spends their budget. I'm just the liaison for communication purposes only, so.
And doesn't a liaison go from one board to another to make sure that
questions are Okay. answered? Let's
You haven't asked me any
continue with,
questions.
any more public comment? Gentlemen, in
Anthony
the-
Noble, 3423 North Birch Creek. I've been sitting and following this for some weeks. I think it's just a smart idea that as the township, like what we're trying to do is, I've been reading that the township got an independent person do a study on cost and the campus and combining everything. And I think as a community, we need to get that back before we all start jumping down at each other's throats. And we've already got a police and fire millage. I believe we have, which we desperately need. We have the library millage, and if we have a third millage coming up, taxpayers, that's not fiscally responsible. It's gonna create havoc, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. So then, hopefully, with that, we can come together and use the taxpayers. If we're gonna save money, I know the community would love to do it. I myself would love it. And also, I'd like to give the chief a praise with my kids are out, and one of his officers came by and just stopped and spoke with them. Very community-oriented police department, and it's really great to see that. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice, moving on. Okay. Now that I've lost my agenda. Thank you. Consent agenda, Mr. Clerk?
Happy to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, you'd like to make a motion? That sounds good. Okay, I have a motion. Looking for support?
Support?
I have motion and support. All in favor?
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
Under the consent agenda, I first of all wanted to thank Elaine very much for explaining some of the budget amendments to me. And then also I wanted to let the people know that according to the community development report in this consent agenda, Hobby Lobby is looking to open the end of this month, and Alta, which I probably won't frequent very often, but Alta is going to open sometime later this fall. So I thought that was really kind of good information for us. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, we have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, ayes have it. Moving along.
Sorry, guys. Mike, did you support?
I supported.
Item 7, the minutes, approval of minutes of a regular board meeting of July 18th. For a motion?
Motion to approve board minutes of July 18th.
All right, motion, support?
I'll support that.
I have support. Mr. Powell.
For just discussion, and I'm going to just look to the board to decide whether or not it's clear enough. On page 9, the third paragraph down, it starts with Trustee Ruggles. It's fairly confusing because it talks about he contacted her homeowners association president, and it's a his and her and he and she, and there are no references to what those pronouns represent. I'm going to suggest that really the her and her husband refer back to page 1, which is Cheryl Harmon, under public comments, page 1. I believe and again, I just believe that he's referring to the comments made by Cheryl Harmon at Is it Herman? There's another thing here then, another correction. That's Herman instead of Harmon. And that maybe those pronouns could be modified with the actual people's name. Otherwise, we have no concept who he's talking about.
Okay, so duly noted.
That's it.
That's it? Okay, so we have a motion support with those, we'll have to put some sort of an obvious amendment in there, so that, for identification purposes of the individuals involved in the conversation. Motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 8, public hearing with resolution. This is item 8A, it's a public hearing for the establishment of emergency sewer connections, 2017-01. Janine, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just had a question for Janine. Is this confirming the district? Okay, so the last resolution was intent? Okay, thank you. I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, it's public hearing.
Oh, excuse me, so you need a motion to go into public hearing?
Motion going to public
Motion
hearing.
to go into public hearing.
Support?
Was that a roll call vote in the public hearing this time around? That's not a roll call.
It's passing the resolution that needs the roll call.
That's correct. I beg your pardon. Okay, thank you for reminding me. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We're now in public hearing for the establishment of emergency sewer connections, 2017-01. Any comment from the public? Going once, going twice. Make a
Motion
motion.
to close public hearing?
Motion. Support. A motion support to close public hearing. Public hearing is now closed.
Vote, I think.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Item 8B, the resolution 8, it would be 8A1, I beg your pardon. Resolution number 17-28, establishment of the emergency sewer connections, 2017-01.
Motion to approve resolution 17-028, confirming the district for the emergency sewer program.
I have motion, looking for support.
Support.
Support, roll call vote.
Under discussion?
Discussion?
Just to inform the public, the township does whatever they can in order to make it easier and more affordable for sanitary sewer connections for homeowners. We have a fund that we can loan people money for, and we can actually establish a special assessment district to help people connect to sanitary sewers when they desire or they need to, and then spread those costs over a period of time. So wanted to just suggest maybe the homeowners participate and take advantage of that.
The policies that the township board approved, you have to meet certain qualifications. It's really for people who can't afford it.
Yes, well, thank you.
And a septic failure.
Okay,
Documented septic
okay,
failure.
thank you.
You should always also note that this resolution sets the public hearing for the next step in the process, which is the confirmation of the roll, and be the last step in the process. The hearing is scheduled for September 19th at 7:00 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. So the resolution number 17-28, the establishment of the emergency sewer connection.
We
Okay.
need a vote.
You had motion, you had support.
Motion and support, we need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Lilly?
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Henry Voorhees,
Yes.
Mike Paul,
Yes.
Scott Ruggles, absent. Mr. Roman,
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Kola,
Yes. Okay, moving along to 8B, public hearing to update the 5-year recreation plan, 2018-2022. So we would need a motion to go into public hearing.
Motion to go into public hearing?
Support for that?
Oh, support, yeah, sorry.
Support. Motion and support. We're all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now in public hearing of the 5-year recreation plan. We're going to do just, I think, the 5-year recreation plan is just that. It's a plan that's a vision from the planning department as to where our community's dollars, where they go and how they'll be spent. It's not necessarily the gospel, but it's sort of a roadmap. And, Jason, you care to comment on it just real quickly?
Sure. So the 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan is a separate plan that the township has, along with its master plan and zoning ordinance. The focus is obviously on recreation. It talks about parks, maintenance, pathways, those sorts of things. It lays out planning in 5-year time increments. It's also required, not necessarily required, but in order to be eligible for state and federal funding, a township has to have a resolution adopted 5-year Parks and Recreation Plan on file with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. And we try to make sure that we're proactive. So our current plan expires in December of this year. This new plan will take the township from 2018 to 2022.
Jason, is that on the website?
It is.
For residents to see? It
Sure
is, okay.
yes. And for the last 30 days, a copy of this plan has been available not only at Township Hall, but at the Dublin Senior Center, as well as on the website for people to review, which is a part of that state process. It has to be available for 30 days prior to a public hearing to receive public comment on the document.
Right. Is there anyone that would like to comment or have a question on that? Mr. Piccionato.
Piccionato, 8771 Townsend Drive. It is on the website, and I read the document, massive document, but I did read it. The one question I do have is, talking about the community center, we're talking about a library. I didn't see anywhere in there, I know it's 2022, about trails or something going to the library along Elizabeth Lake Road or a plan. How do people get to the new library, bikes or whatever? I didn't see anything in that plan. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it's there.
Yeah, no.
It's a pretty extensive document.
It could be easily missed, but it is included.
Okay.
Under the action plan, there's an item listed in here, and it's called a community/central park development with a total dollar amount of $600,000, with an anticipated township share of $250,000 and a grant amount of $350,000.
Yeah, I went through that. Maybe I did miss it.
So that whole community central park development would be,
But I'm talking about trails that would come to it.
and I think it sort of would, that central park as a part of that overall design would be the trails that would lead both down Elizabeth Lake
Okay.
Road and
Because
M59.
if we're gonna put the money in, then we need to find a way to get
Absolutely.
maximum use out of it also.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions from the public or comments? This is your park system that you're looking at, so if you are curious about it, please take the time to go to the website. And also, please feel free at any time to come into the planning department, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to show you something that you can read a little easier than on the computer screen. So, with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Motion and support, all in favor?
That was a motion, you need second?
I need a second, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll second that again.
Seconded, okay. We'll get there sooner or later. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Before we vote, I did wonder the same thing, Pete, so thank you very much. I also noticed that the ITC corridor, the pathway, my favorite topic is the pathway down the ITC corridor is on it. And I did notice, however, and maybe Jason, you could help me.
Sure.
In the plan, it kind of shows an option of piggybacking a pathway adjacent to a roadway. And it gives a number of options how to do that. My experience is that cities and villages that own their roads can do that. However, I've been told anyway that the road commission in Oakland County does not allow that option. Is there a reason why that was put in our
I
packet?
mean, it's one of those things where we want to make sure that we at least include everything, just in case at any point that's ever allowed, just so that all the bases are covered. I don't know, are you talking specifically about like a bike
Yeah.
thoroughfare, or like a, there's a section in here that talks about I can't remember what the specific language is. off the top
Yeah,
of my
it
head
shows,
now,
it shows
okay.
two methods to widen the width of the roadway and delineate a pathway along the travel portion of the road.
So, yeah, and so I would say that there's some cutting edge planning stuff in here that we put in only in the event that the road commission ever changes standards or somehow MDOT begins allowing some of those types of things, so that at least we can point to the plan and say, you know, we've thought of these things too, and we'd like to be able to try and implement them here as a part of our overall plan.
Okay, I just wouldn't want to mislead someone when roads are being done in the
Right.
township.
Sure.
I don't want them to think that we can add another lane adjacent to the roadway. So, okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
It now closes the public hearing. Item 8B1, the resolution number 17-31, the adoption of Township Recreation Plan 2018-2022. Looking for a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 17-031, which is the adoption of the Township Recreation Plan.
Support?
I'll support that again.
Yes, motion and support. This will be a roll call vote.
Who supported the motion? Andrea? Liz Smith?
Yes?
Andrea Voorhees?
Yes.
Mike Powell?
Yes.
Scott Ruggles absent. Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Lilly votes yes. Mr. Kowal?
Yes. Okay. That passes. Number 9 is a resolution which is kind of bringing us into the modern age. It's referring to our communication for our CBDG postings. In the past, in the past, the newspaper was really the only method we had for communicating before the internet. Oakland County has now made it part of their policy that they allow the web and any information, electronic information, to allow as a legal posting. We have found that in the case of the CBDG money, where there's meetings and dates and such, sometimes we'll have a deadline, that it makes it difficult sometimes to meet those requirements due to the time it's required and the infrequency of a local publication here. So it's the thought of our CDBG person, Trish Pergament, who is my administrative assistant and has been at many of these classes at Oakland County, to pursue this so that it would actually allow us to streamline this. It would also save us a little bit of money. And that money could also be used in turn to advertise in the papers for people when we can try to help them. So that money is better spent in that respect than it is just to notify as to when dates of meetings are. So this is per the policy and procedure of Oakland County CDBG, and I would like to see Community Development Block Grant money. I was getting there, okay. And that's the monies that come to us annually that we apply for every year, and that money comes back to our community so that we have the option as White Lake Township to try to help our local residents at whatever level. It might be a new roof, it might be a new furnace. In one case last year, I think it was a new well. Things of that nature. And these are for folks that don't always have the economic means and aren't as fortunate as some of us, the rest of us. And, you know, everybody has their moment in the shade. So it's nice to have that tool in the box that we can help our own and for our community to control it, and not necessarily Oakland County to control it. They do a great job, but there's something about being able to take care of our own residents right here in our own backyard, and we get to know those people and know what their needs are. So that's what that's about. Is there any other questions on that anybody has?
Are those federal funds that?
It's some of it's federal, some of it's state. It's kind of a, you know, right now some of that's in question as to where that ultimately is going to trickle down or be taken away, or who knows. But it does help our community. There's no question about it. So, yes, Mr.
So I signed many of the checks that are made out of this block grant to the tradesmen that do the roofing, the water heaters, the furnaces, and typically they're emergency situations for very low-income residents. So just a great program, and I appreciate you trying to streamline.
Just
So,
something to do a little bit more to try to make it easier on the paperwork end of things, as the machine tends to take a lot of time to get the paperwork done as it is, so it will help out. So we do have Resolution 17-029. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 17-029 to allow web postings for the CDBG public hearing notice.
Support that.
Thank you. And support from Liz Smith. A motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes
Do
have
you
it.
need a roll call vote?
Not
or
not
no?
on that
No?
one.
Okay.
Financial.
Awesome.
New business, item 10A, water sewer approvals. Mr. Potter, I think you're going to show us some pictures.
I am going to show you some pictures. Let's start with the easy stuff. Item 1, the water department would like to request from the board permission to go out to bids for the cleaning of 2 wells and the beginning of service on 1 other well. So the well 1 at Village Acres, which is the largest well at Village Acres treatment plant, after we completed construction of the new treatment facility and tried to start that well, it was drawing over 180 amps, which is well over the overloads capacity of that well starter, and it appears that there's possibly some bearing damage to that well. I've never personally heard that well run, so I have no historical background with this particular well that was shut down before I started here, and so we really don't know what the costs are going to be on that repairs. We don't know what's wrong with the well yet. But I think I'd like to ask the board's permission to approve getting that process started. And so the other well that we would like to go out to bids for would be the cleaning of well 2 at Village Acres. Well 2 is the smallest well at Village Acres treatment plant. That is currently drawing down to within 5 feet of the top of the bowls. So a little bit about the construction of these wells. It's a vertical turbine pump. There's a borehole. There's a pipe that goes down from the motor at the top of the well with a long shaft that connects the impellers at the bottom. The drawdown in the well is a measurement of the amount of water coming into that outer casing from the aquifer. And right now it's looking like that's drawing down way too low. So we're at risk of breaking suction on that well, which would be very bad for the motor and bad for the impellers. So it's looking like that probably needs a cleaning. So we're going to need to have that pulled and get that well cleaned. We don't have exact costs on that, which is why I'm asking to go out to bids. Twin Lakes 1, well 1, has been recommended to us by Peerless Midwest that that one also is drawing down quite a ways, but not quite to the level of the other wells that we discussed. So it's looking at this time like that one can be cleaned in place, which means we don't need to pull the motor. They would do a cleaning with the well motor in place and then use the well itself to pump off the cleaning solutions after that. It's going to be a lot less expensive to do it that way.
Probably makes sense to do this all at one time, too. You're going to have a crew there and mobilization and all the other factors ultimately when it comes to...
Most of these are going to require probably a crew to... the clean in place, we'll probably be able to have that well back online within a week. That's going to be one mobilization. Now the others will be probably pulling the well out, cleaning it. They'll usually take the well back to their service center, balance the shaft, check everything, make sure everything's right before they put that back in.
Okay, and as you've brought this before us, you have 3 different items that we'll call overall items for the meeting tonight. What I'd like to do is for the ease of getting these addressed, we're going to pass them separately. So
Yep.
your first request is to obtain bids for well cleaning and repairs for Village Acres number 1 and number 2 and Twin Lakes number 1.
Correct.
I'm looking for a motion to approve to go out to bids for that.
Motion to go out to bids for well cleaning and repair for Village Acres 1 and 2 and Twin Lakes number 1.
Motion, looking for support.
I'll support that, and then hopefully I can ask a question
Please do.
for discussion. I think I know the answer to this. Maybe you can enlighten me. If well number 1 in Village Acres is currently broken down, it's not functioning, and we're going to shut down and pull well number 2 in order to clean its screening. Obviously, our system doesn't need that well house to function during that time that both wells are shut down. Is that correct?
Currently, that well house is shut down for scheduled maintenance and repair. We do have a third well at that site that has a 1,500 gallon per minute capacity, and that's what we're currently running that plant on. So, because we're down to essentially one well, is why I put these particular wells above the rest of the wells in our system in line for cleaning. So that system currently serves 1,270 connections. So it's a big portion of our township water system. We have 2,100 connections overall, so that's roughly 60%. So we definitely don't want to let that well break down. And I think that especially with, well, number 1 is down already, so we've been operating on number 2 and number 3. But with number 2 drawing down so far, we've shut that off for safety and just reduced the flow rate of the plant.
Okay, also, can you tell me, do we have budgeted funds for this, or will this require a budget amendment, and do we have enough funds to be able to cover this?
I do have enough. We do not have this currently in the budget, especially with the well 1 repair. We expect that to be quite expensive. It will require a budget amendment, which I plan to bring forward next month. And I have fairly significant budget surplus from last year that I plan to use towards some of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we had motion, we had support. Who gave the support?
Mike
Oh,
did.
okay, I made the motion. I mean, who made the motion? Mike? Okay, I just want to make sure Amy's got it, so Mike and Mike, okay. Motion, support, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
There's a question out in the audience.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jean-Philippe Leuve, 247 Rosario Lane. What is a contingency if the last pump breaks down? What happens then?
Currently, we're running on our Hillview well house, but this is a great question, and it highlights and kind of goes to the question of what they call firm capacity. So firm capacity is a measurement of what your ability to produce is in gallons with your largest plant down out of the system. So Village Acres is our largest facility as far as production goes. And right now, Hillview is the backup to the Village Acres plant. So without Hillview, our peak demand during the summertime, especially in the hours where irrigation is normally running, is typically a little higher than what we can produce with these wells down. So, we'd like to definitely time this process. My next item was a Hillview well house rehab, and that's going to have to be staged to make sure that we can still meet our capacity and not put ourselves in a situation where one breakdown can, cause us to have a lack of supply. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but.
No, but rest at ease, we do have alternate water supplies in the event that we were to have a catastrophic failure. So our system is set up where we do have a system in place to gather water from our other tower if need be on the eastern from the western district to the eastern district. So, but, okay, you want to try a number?
We also have an interconnect with Waterford Township.
Correct, and an
in the event
interconnect
that
with Waterford. Thank you.
Had a major breakdown.
If everything went to hell in a handbasket.
And
Yeah.
we can supply Waterford Township as well, and if they had a major breakdown.
Okay. Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay, so item number 2 on the agenda for the water department is a well house rehab for, actually it's a request for approval to approve a design and engineering for well house rehab on Hillview Well House. So Hillview Well House is primarily going to be used as a backup and during peak demand hours only for the Village Acres treatment plant. Ideally, in a perfect world, we'd like to run Village Acres as much as possible because that has the iron removal capability, whereas Hillview does not. However, during peak hours, we cannot currently meet the demand of the system with just Village Acres. So Hillview, like Village Acres, serves 1,270 connections, and it's critical that we keep that site in good shape and available. So currently that site is probably in the worst condition. It's one of the oldest well houses that we have. It's got a very large hydropneumatic tank that's been patched multiple occasions, and because of the design of that plant, which is essentially a holdover of when it was built in the 1950s, the plant design is one large room that includes both wells, all the electrical controls, all the chemical feed, which includes chlorine, hypochlorite, and the hydropneumatic tank, all in one room. So because you have the corrosive vapor associated with chlorine from sodium hypochlorite in that same room with everything else, since from the 1950s till now, there's a lot of corrosion in there. Essentially, it's to the point where the plant really is at risk of going down at any time, really. So this year's budget, we planned on doing what we call priority maintenance, major item repairs that were critical at all of the well houses. Since then, we've kind of rethought that, and the thought process with that was, we were going to go in every well house, fix the major items, and then next year go back and fix some of the other items. The problem with that thinking is we have limited staff, we have a limited ability to, there's a limited amount of work that we can achieve in a single year with the staff that we have. So the other part of that problem that I think is a little bit flawed is doing that, essentially we are stuck with the same design. We're going to spend a fair amount of money fixing major problems, but the overall design of the building that's the root cause of the damage still exists. So new thought process. We'd like to take the money that we have allocated in this year's budget, focus it on the worst offending plant, which also happens to be the most critical as far as the system, reliability, and start from the ground up and rework that plant to include repiping the plant. We've already installed mag meters in there, but the electrical system is in terrible shape. We need to remove the hydropneumatic tank, replace that with the VFD. The roof is leaking. Both pump hatches leak. The ceiling is almost collapsing. We'd like to create a separate room for the hypochlorite so that we can have that ventilated, and so that we address the corrosive vapor issue. That's the root cause of the damage there. So Johnson and Anderson has put together a plan. I think I'll turn that over to Terry if you'd like to take a couple seconds to go over it.
If I may, ladies and gentlemen, the scope of our services was really put together in the plan that we did for you last August. I think August 16th it's stated in this study that we did for you, and the improvements that were outlined for Hillview are all delineated in that study. I think our cost opinion at that time for these improvements was on the order of $285,500.
That's essentially rebuilding that well house to
Right.
modern specifications.
A big thing, it's getting rid, what you're doing is you're taking out the hydropneumatic tank, replacing that with VFDs, and coming up with a much more reliable system, and then getting rid of the vapors caused by the sodium, or the hypochlorite. So it's a much better product that your operational staff will have to work with.
And the VFD is a variable frequency drive.
That's correct.
Control, which allows so many times in your home when the water turns on or it shuts off, you get that hammering effect. And sometimes, especially in the older homes, this system eliminates that because it slowly winds up, reaches peak performance, and then it slowly winds down. So it's a lot better on the infrastructure all the way around. It's less stressful.
It's less stressful to the infrastructure, and you should realize some cost savings on the electrical. You're not having a big surge either way.
Mr. Roman?
I think that well house is over 50 years old, is it not?
Yeah.
It is. Okay, so it's time.
Yeah.
I believe it was built in 1953.
53 or 57.
I think some of the, right in there, yeah. And I think some of the electrical system are actually still original.
So it's almost, it's 60 or damn near 60 years old.
Just make sure we get 60 years out of the new
Yeah, we
one.
want 60 out of the new one. Yeah.
Well,
So, Mr. Powell.
Terry, could you explain the difference between the minimum services of $24,000 and the additional services of $19,500?
The 19.5 would be if you want to authorize us to do construction engineering services. So our base contract would be to do the design, get it out for bids, take bids, and so you could either approve the construction engineering now or wait until you take bids and then know where you're at with the process.
That's certainly what I would suggest. We'll know budgets a little bit more. We'll have the bids in. And so if you're ready for a motion, Mr. Supervisor?
I'm ready for a motion.
I move that the township hire J&A to provide the minimum services for the engineering design for the rehab of the Hillview Well House at a cost not to exceed $24,000.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support?
I have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I say have it. Okay, item number 3.
okay, item number 3 is a sewer department issue. And this was brought to our attention by the good folks at Johnson & Anderson during manhole inspections as part of our SAW grant work. So, for everybody in the public, the SAW grant is a sanitary asset management grant. That's a 90% matching fund that is essentially funding provided by the state to go along with a mandate to do an asset management plan, comprehensive asset management plan for your sanitary system, sewer system. So part of that work was to inspect and GIS locate. So basically GIS is a global information system, geographical information system. So it uses GPS coordinates to identify the exact location of all of our assets in the system. So during that scope of that work, it was discovered that we have some fairly serious hydrogen sulfide damage in manhole 101 on Elizabeth Lake Road near the intersection of Union Lake Road. The photograph that I plopped in front of you today is one of the photographs from our J&A inspectors from their site visit out there to that manhole. So I've been working with Karen Warren at Oakland County Water Resource Commission to get some bids and identify exactly what the scope of this damage is. So it turns out that downstream from the Myers Pressure Sewer District that comes down M59 and eventually down Elizabeth Lake Road, where that pressurized sewer district meets the gravity system in phase 1, approximately 300 feet downstream from there, and the first manhole is completely corroded by hydrogen sulfide. So what you don't have are the films of the TVing of the sewer mains, but if anybody is interested, I will make you a copy. They're not something that's easily sendable by email, but I can put that on a stick drive and send them to you. So as you can see by the photograph there, that damage is pretty extensive, and we are considering this an emergency repair. So the plan going forward is to reline approximately 300 feet of gravity sewer main with a plastic material that is a CIPP material that's impervious to hydrogen sulfide. We're also going to dig up that manhole and replace that, and then line that with the hydrogen sulfide resistant material. So this is not in any way a comprehensive plan going forward. This just addresses this one emergency section of pipe. We still have manhole assessments being done, so part of our SAW grant is going to be develop a comprehensive plan on how do we deal with future problems like this. There is one other section in the township that I expect to see some hydrogen sulfide damage, which is downstream of the Pontiac Lake Pressure Sewer District. So I'm expecting some damage on Shotwell where that meets the drop connection in there as well. But I think that Johnson & Anderson's probably already been through there, so that work is not at the emergency level yet. This one is the worst one that we've seen. So this plan involves a few different prices. Water Resource Commission has received these bids. These are the lowest bids that they've received. They did also receive another bid on the relining, but the price was like 50% more expensive than this bid, so they were ruled out. This will also include a temporary overland bypass. The process there will be to install a flow-through plug into the system coming into that manhole, and then pumping through a temporary pipe overland around the district that's going to be relined. These prices are all broken down in there in the bids that I've given you. One thing that we don't know exactly is the extent of dewatering that will be necessary. There is a pretty good amount of groundwater flowing in around one of the pipes coming into that manhole, so we do expect there to be some dewatering there. D'Angelo is kind of laid out two prices there, kind of an over and an under, and we are guessing on the over, but I would recommend we still add a contingency to this to cover any unexpected costs. It is an underground construction project, so I feel that, like most of the other ones that we've done in the last few years, that there are going to be unforeseen costs. But due to the extent of this damage, we've recommended to Oakland County Water Resource Commission, especially on the pipe, to not clean that until we're ready for relining. So the pipe is bad enough. I think that a newer nozzle on a vac truck would probably blast right through it.
We don't need a sinkhole in White Lake Township.
Exactly.
I think they got one in Macomb big enough for most of the county. So.
Well, if this had not been caught by our SAW grant activities through Johnson & Anderson, there's a pretty good possibility that we'd have had a sinkhole in not too long. There were some pretty good chunks missing from sections of the pipe that weren't leaking a significant amount yet, but it looked like they were on their way to be serious leaks very soon.
Aaron, what's the total package of all these items?
Total package is $84,212 to $101,724. Again, I think that we would be smart to plan on the over on that and probably add a contingency on top of that to be on the
10%?
safe side.
So 110,000?
Roughly.
question for Aaron.
Yes.
Our sewer users here in the township, we pay through the teeth for sewer maintenance to Oakland County.
Yes.
Where have they been, and are you disappointed in them not coming forward to us months or years ago for this kind of a repair?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. That damage probably didn't happen immediately. That's obviously years of damage. However, the way hydrogen sulfide damage works, is basically that hydrogen sulfide eats away at that structure. It almost honeycombs the concrete. So you can go from looking kind of bad to looking like that in pretty short order once it gets to a certain point.
So if it was inspected 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, it may have not have been at this stage.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the other item that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is that Oakland County has a certain time frame that they use for TVing of sewer mains, for example. They TV sewer mains every 15 years. That's essentially up to us. If we want them to do it more frequently, we can get that done, but it's all a matter of cost. And then the last thing is, just like our department in-house, we come up with all these great plans that we'd like to get to this year, but emergencies happen, things happen, and all those plans kind of get kicked down the road. So you can't just skip the next plan that they had as far as maintenance. So as emergencies happen, you know, sometimes these timelines have to be adjusted somewhat. In a perfect world, yeah, these would have been caught. But I've been told by Oakland County that, you know, they do manhole inspections every 7 years. They do CCTV the mains every 15 years. And basically it's up to us if we'd like to pay for that service to be done more frequently.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
And you guys may be discussing that right now, but we do pay, our residents pay so much into the maintenance fund quarterly.
Which we are
for
in good shape.
For this work. So are you saying that these funds are being held by Oakland County, and so these funds?
No, these are our funds.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We pay Oakland County, or the residents
Aaron
pay
will
Oakland
explain
County
that process.
for maintaining our sewer system.
So we pay Oakland County. We do have a maintenance contract with Oakland County that covers up to $2,500, I believe, in minor maintenance. Now, out of that, they operate the system. They don't necessarily repair and replace the system. So when folks have, say, a grinder station alarm going off, Oakland County goes out and responds and repairs those alarms. If they continue to go out to the same residents over and over and over, and the costs go up above $2,500, then we get those bills. So out of the money that our residents pay quarterly, a percentage of that goes to sewer reserve, a percentage of it goes to debt service, and a percentage of it goes to administration fees and those funds come back to us. So the second item that I've attached to that photograph there is the current balance as of today of the sewer reserve fund. So you'll notice on the bottom line, the middle column is our current balance for the sewer reserve fund. So we do have the funds available to do this maintenance.
That's what I was hoping I'd hear from you.
So prudent planning.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, I think we got a couple questions.
Yes.
Sheldon Greenblatt, 9055 Huron Bluffs Drive in Twin Lakes Village. Two things. What is the source of the hydrogen sulfide, if it's known? And number two, will the effect on the shot well pipe impact Twin Lakes Village? Because we have the pressurized sewer system.
It will not. The pressurized sewer system is composed of 100% HDPE pipe. So that's high-density polyethylene plastic pipe. The high-density polyethylene pipe is not susceptible to hydrogen sulfide. The hydrogen sulfide is actually methane gas that comes from the decomposition of human waste. So the issue is because of the large section, almost our entire western district west of that intersection is pressurized sewer main. So from the time sewage enters that pipe, the average sanitary pump pumps roughly 22 gallons per minute. So that pipe is miles long. So during the dwell time, from the time that enters that pipe to the time it dumps into that gravity section, it could be in there for several days. So in that process, that methane is kind of releasing out of that as it gets exposed to the atmospheric conditions of the gravity section. So when it's inside the pressurized main, as it travels down that main, it encounters several air release valves, they're called, that let some of that out. But when you have a drop connection between a pressure sewer and a gravity sewer down here, you always have some release of that, just because of the turbulent nature of that coming into that section.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay.
I was just going to
yes.
make a comment that
Yes,
it's,
sir.
the biggest contributing factor is the residents' time that it spends in that large force main. And it's, there's a chemical reaction taking in there, the gas is created, and then when it freely hits that first manhole, that's when the gas comes off and the hydrogen sulfide's created, and that manhole is really bad. My guy that did the inspection pulled the cover, and he was able to grab a handful of the side of the manhole chimney and take a handful of the concrete. So,
Yeah, it's definitely
and just a comment, I haven't seen the quote here, but that seems really reasonable because you have to handle the flow from that force main while you're doing this operation. And if the Angelo brothers are involved with this plan, our experience with them has been top notch. They also just completed Nordic Drive out here for you folks. They really do good work.
They're a very reputable
Yeah, they
company. Yeah. Then one of the things, just so people have a kind of a snippet of this, if you're wondering, okay, this is going to happen again. When this sewer was initially designed, some of the technology that's available today was obviously not in place. So one of the things that's done oftentimes in a new line that may be done is the plastic coating that is put on there that I'll put it in layman's terms, it looks like undercoating in your pickup truck, okay? And that is sprayed on the concrete, so now that becomes much more, it's not 100% impervious, but I'm gonna say it's probably 85 to 90% impervious.
50 years is the
Yeah,
expected
50 years?
lifespan
Okay.
of the
So it's significant
material.
when that goes on, and it's actually pretty cool because when they put this lining in there, they put this, almost looks like a skin from a large salami. They put it in there, they hit it with an epoxy-like polymer, plastic. A resin, and it fills up to the inside wall. It actually gives it a greater structural integrity. Then they send a little robot through, and it knows by GPS where all the inverts are, like where your sewer comes from your house, and it takes a little router and goes, "Nyep," moves on to the next one. So it's actually pretty cool stuff. I've seen it done. I was really fascinated with it when I saw it. So it's a good system. It's probably one of the best ways to go. So, but any other questions or comments, Mr. Powell?
No, but I'll make a motion if you'd like.
I would like a motion, sir.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we authorize the Water Resource Commission to award the contract to CES Colby Energy Services for the lining of the 24-inch and the 27-inch concrete pipe, as well as the D'Angelo Brothers for the replacement of the sanitary sewer manhole, and assuming that dewatering will be needed. And obviously, we authorize the 10% contingency on top of that as well.
And they authorize the supervisor to act on behalf of the township.
I do, as a matter of fact, to sign that contract.
Thank you. And that will be for $110,000.
Correct.
Not to exceed. I have a motion, looking for support. Support. I have support from Mr. Roman. Motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Potter. Thank you very much for being extremely descriptive in layman's terms so that the folks have an understanding of what the heck is going on, because I know when you first immersed me in this, it was like learning Latin. So it's much better to have it in layman's terms, and I really appreciate it. I know the board appreciates it, and I'm sure the public appreciates it. It's putting it in English.
It's my pleasure, and I would like to just say lastly that if anyone from the public has questions about water or sewer related items at all, definitely feel free to give our office a call at any time. You can just call the main switchboard and follow the prompts to get to us. And I love talking about water quality as much as the next guy, so I'd be happy to speak with you about anything.
You're pretty boring there, Aaron.
Yeah.
You need to get a life.
I was pretty curious, since we're only recent residents in about 10 years.
Yes.
You guys haven't come over and put a well down in my well. How did we get into the well business, and who do we supply with water system?
The well business seems to be a regional item just because of the abundance of good quality aquifers in the area. So most of our surrounding communities have their own well systems as well. There's a lot of water available there. Back in the 50s and 60s, and in some cases even earlier than that, most subdivisions put in what they called a community well house. And since then, I know Waterford. Well, it was, that's a good question. That's a little bit before my time, but
Dick Kelly.
I think that probably the cost of operating the system and the expertise required necessitated the township to step in and help out. And then eventually it's led to, in most cases, all of the community well houses being connected to a common distribution system, which gives it a lot of reliability. So now if, say, Twin Lakes 1 or Twin Lakes 2 well house goes down, we can easily pump water from our Village Acres treatment plant over to those sites.
As a little sidelight, south of White Lake Township and south of Waterford, they are on City of Detroit water, and that's the northern limits of here in Oakland County. And so we, quite frankly, are blessed with well water instead of City of Detroit water. So
Not paying for it, though.
what's that?
Not paying those prices, though.
For City of Detroit, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, no, I meant, yes, that's correct.
Okay, Mr. Roman.
Aaron, I want to thank you as always. I know part of the stuff you try to explain to me probably goes over my head, but I appreciate all your efforts and work that you've been putting in here. Historically, I just want you to know, we actually tried to renegotiate our Commerce Township sewer contract with them a few years ago. We sent them a draft, and we never heard back from them.
That's Commerce Township.
That's Commerce Township. That's Commerce Township. So I was fairly involved in that. We're working on it. We're bringing Rick up to speed. But the biggest injustice that I saw in our sewer contract with Commerce is that we pay them the same maintenance fee, okay, as the Commerce residents pay Commerce Township, yet Commerce's infrastructure is covered for damages like this. Ours is not. So what happens is we now have to charge our residents a White Lake maintenance fee, which is what we're going to use to cover the cost of this repair. So just to the entire board, eventually we really need to get back at, with that. And I know, Rick, you've talked to their new supervisor,
Yes.
who needs to get up to speed, but thanks again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Okay, very good. Okay, going on to item, thank you, 10B at the asphalt repair of the township parking lot. There has been a need to take a look at our parking lot, and as I had our maintenance fellow, John Wheaton, he put together a supervisor call. As requested, I solicited paving companies to bid the township parking lot as of August 1st, 2017. I received 2 estimates out of 4 companies I contacted. After reviewing both bids received, it is my opinion to go with Allied Paving. They've worked with the township in the past with patching the parking lot, and their prices are reasonable. Respectfully, John Wheaton. And we have viewed the site a little bit, and Mr. Powell, I think, has something he wants to...
Yes,
some
Mr.
discussion on this?
Supervisor, if I could, I've reviewed these since I am in this line of work, and my suggestion, in light of the fact that we may be moving sometime in the near future, in the next few years, that we not necessarily propose the work that's being requested in these 2 bids. They're looking to saw cut, remove, and replace, which is a 10 to 15-year life expectancy of that type pavement. My suggestion is something different, milling the top 1.5 to 2 inches of asphalt and replacing just the surface on our pavement in key areas. I believe that we can do it for substantially less than this, $35,000, and also, and this would not be known by anyone except those in the industry, that the type of pavement that they're proposing here and they bid on is really more residential driveway pavement and not, MDOT doesn't even have an 1100 mix anymore, and that was back in the 1990s that they dropped that mix. So they quote that because they can just about put any asphalt they want to down, and it meets this spec. And so my suggestion to the board, that if the board is in favor of redoing the parking lot, or sections of the parking lot in the rear, that we authorize maybe that up to maybe say $40,000, and allow me to work with the supervisor to come up with a couple other options that will be substantially less and probably not take as long, nor it won't last as long, but we're hoping to not be here for the next 15, 20 years. And so my suggestion is to allow us to come up with some options, but maybe authorize the amount, because we're a little bit late in the year. And my concern is, if we don't authorize this amount, we're going to be paving in October and November, and that's when the paving contractors are the busiest.
The prices go up.
And the prices are going to go up. So I'm working with a number of very large paving companies now, and I'd like to introduce this project to them and see if we can't do it a little cheaper than this.
Okay. Okay. It would probably go out for a bid in the sense that we have to bring them here versus trying to go through a process of having Johnson & Anderson write up specifications.
Right.
This is more of a patch and repair than it is a rebuild.
Well, we've already got 2 bids,
Yeah.
so we can compare all future prices to this, and
those 2 were based off the same areas. I mean,
Correct.
They're carbon copies, so
Right.
those are defined areas. So I'm fine. I'll work with you on that. I think that's amicable and a good way to work that through.
I'd like to do that, but I didn't know if comments from the board on that option.
That's fine. I mean, especially since we're going to potentially be here 10 to 15 years, yeah.
Hopefully less
I know,
than
but
that.
I'm just worst
Right,
case scenario.
Mr. Roman, anything?
How many contractors can you get bids from, Mike?
I'm working with 2 right now, but I work with 5 quite often.
Okay.
So
I'd support your motion if you can get at least 2 bids.
I can get at least 2.
Terry, do you have any comment on that? Or any, okay, you good with that? Okay. All right.
I think it's a good idea to.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, we have some areas out there that have to be addressed regardless.
Yep.
No, but it's a good idea if we can save money and get the quality that we are supposed to have.
Right.
Then that makes sense.
Right. So with that in mind, Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to authorize you to sign a contract in an amount not to exceed $40,000 for the repair of the pavement in the rear parking lot and the side entrance drive, the westerly side entrance drive.
I'll support that.
Okay, I have a motion and support. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. We'll get some holes filled up. Mr. Clerk, St. Patrick's Annual Fair.
St. Pat's Fair. Recommend approval of the St. Pat's Fair permit. All of the recommendations have been complied with, and all of our consultants, police, fire, building, planning, have approved their portions of the permit. I would like to ask that their fee be waived, being that they are one of our sources of elections. Open that up to us. We have done that for a number of years in the past and would like to ask for the same consideration this year.
Well, it is a polling location for our community, and we certainly appreciate the use of that facility. So,
I'll make a motion to approve their annual fair permit and to waive their permit fee.
I have a motion, look for support.
I'll support.
I have support by Andrea, motion support, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, thank you. Item 10D, request to transfer funds, flexible spending account. Mr. Roman.
All right, so just so the board knows, one of the benefits that we offer as optional to our employees is to open a flexible spending account. It allows them to take money out of their payroll, put it away throughout the year, and they get a tax benefit for doing that, and then they can then use that money towards their medical expenses. The problem with with that system is that it's subject to federal guidelines that allow participants to be reimbursed for eligible claims at any time during the plan year up to their election limits. So many participants are going to hit their limits before plan year end, which means that the plan has to front the money before it's all collected from their biweekly paychecks. Interestingly, the plan has grown, so the election total for the plan year June 1st through May 31st amounts to just under $45,000. We've paid out claims for the plan year so far of $11,600, while the plan has only collected $6,900 from payroll contributions. Eventually, the FSA plan will recoup this difference. However, I need to protect against a bank overdraw now, and that's why I'm requesting the $5,000.
Is this a calendar year
It is not.
project? Okay, oh, I was
It is
wondering.
not. It is a fiscal year ending May 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, okay, so
I'll put that in the form of a motion.
you'd like to have a transfer of $5,000, okay? I have a motion, get some support.
Support that.
A motion and support, any questions? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're at item 10F, it's a FOIA appeal, Counselor.
This is an appeal that was filed. You have materials in front of you that we prepared. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Upon review of the documents and at the request of council, I would like to adopt this resolution. So I'm looking for support to adopt the resolution.
17-033.
17-033, thank you.
Support?
I have motion and support.
Who made the motion?
Rick did.
I made the motion.
Oh, okay.
I can still do that.
Good practice.
I gotta stay in practice, I'm used to it, yeah. Okay. Motion, we have support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's have it. Thank you very much. It's been adopted. Item 10G, status of Civic Center Consulting Project. Jason, you here to let us know
Supervisor.
what's going on?
Yep, absolutely. So today was week one in what is going to be a 12-week process of putting together some comprehensive planning for the Civic Center complex. Today, I thought was a very productive meeting. It was held here at Township Hall at 1 o'clock, and it was members of both the public safety community here in White Lake, township general staff and the library board and staff at the library. The items that were talked about today was the timeline. This is going to be a 12-week process of putting together data and collecting stakeholder information from 6 groups that were talked about at this meeting, including the library, the township, public safety, including police and fire, as well as local property owners or nearby property owners and developers, or people who have a business stake in that portion of the township.
Schools.
In schools.
And the school district, yes, thank you. So the idea being that over the next week, stakeholders will be reached out to, and there will be a meeting coming up here in the August 28th through 30th, where stakeholder meetings will be held, where these folks will be brought in at different time slots to begin interviewing them about what their concerns, challenges, things that they see as positive will come to us about the Civic Center campus. They will take this stakeholder information and use that to begin formulating what they see as sort of a comprehensive vision for that portion of the township. For residents that don't know, when I say the area of the township, I'm talking about the area behind the new Kroger store on Elizabeth Lake Road. Sort of a long-standing area that the township's looked at as having be a town center area or a civic campus and shopping town center district, if you will. So the next meeting for the steering committee will be also that same week of the 28th and the 30th. So it's a very aggressive schedule, and the consultants want to keep the pace. And so next week will be a week that they kind of begin looking at our plans, our master plan and zoning ordinance, and getting different data from SEMCOG and some other data that we have here at the township and the library, and then the stakeholder meetings will take place that very next week. So from this point, which was today at 1 o'clock, things will move very rapidly. So
Very good.
Awesome.
if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Mr. Powell, you were present at the meeting. Did you find it
I found it
informative?
very, very informative, and I have a great deal of hope that all the groups will come together and come up with a plan that we can all get behind and unify the township. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay, very good. Okay.
The only thing I'd like to add to that, just to give the residents a heads up, is in that meeting, the consultants will be planning a public forum, and that will be one of our next agenda items. So the public will be mailed and then placed on township website, any social media avenue that the township has, the police Facebook, Parks and Rec, hopefully, the library, township, anything that we can to get the date out to the public. The newspaper will be utilized to invite all residents to come and give some input. So that should be like 3-4 weeks, we
Yeah,
think.
really soon, and I think the idea was too is that we might be looking at the Lakeland Center for Arts to host those public meetings based on the anticipated amounts of public that would be interested in that.
I believe the schedule allows for 2 public meetings right now.
I think so, yeah.
One will be input, and the other will be kind of the results of the input.
Yep.
These are in 7 p.m. meetings or after?
They haven't been scheduled yet. It's, probably going to be based on when we can get into the school's availability, and as soon as we know, we'll give everyone as much notice as what was said today.
Okay, thank you, Jason. That's very enlightening, so we know that's moving forward. Any other questions from the public on that?
Excuse me.
Yes.
On the FOIA appeal, I will be notified on what the decision was on my FOIA appeal.
I don't even know who you are myself, I'm sorry.
Okay, you just voted on a.
Yeah, but I don't know you personally, I beg your pardon. I don't know you personally, so.
She'll get notified.
Okay, you'll be notified, okay. Yes, Mr. Holmes.
Just a couple comments, if I may, on the Civic Center discussion. And I'm part of the steering committee. And one thing I noticed today is a few of the people representing the library at the meeting brought up the issue that there was an election that they won, and because of that, they want the bond to be issued. I've heard that, the board has heard that. What I personally would like to hear from the library staff are some other reasons that the township should have a separate standalone library. I know from my end, I've brought up some reasons, some logic for having a combined building, and just some of those things are economies of scale, cost savings, common roof, common roads, parking, common utilities, common maintenance. Other reasons to do it, one-stop shop. Also, more traffic into the library as residents visit the municipal offices. There's going to be some overflow into the library, certainly more exposure, easier to secure, better security as one building. So I'm hoping that some of the folk from the library side bring some more reasons. And with that, there's some misinformation out there about what the election actually accomplished. And I just want to state my understanding after speaking with our bonding attorney, what that election actually accomplished. And what it does is it requires our township board, excuse me, to levy a millage to service the debt on the bond if and when a bond issue is actually approved by this township board. The election does not require this township board to ever issue a bond. That said, I think everyone on this board has publicly stated that they do support a new library. But I just wanted to get that information out there. I think the next item is 10, what is it? 10?
I.
10H is going to be.
10H, I'm sorry, yes.
It's funding
for the advertising.
So Liz, I'll wait for my next, I have more to say, but I'll wait until 10H is up. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
You're very welcome. Any other questions or comments on the Civic Center progress so far? Anybody have any questions else? Okay, moving on. We're going to item 10H. 10H is a request, my understanding, from the members of the group, something they could all agree on, was that there should be funding for advertising in the sense of, a mailing of a sort or whatever means necessary throughout the township to all of the residents to make sure that they're aware of the dates and the schedule and that nature. And I've been requested by the planning department to approve an amount not to exceed $10,000 for mailings and communications regarding this particular project. We believe it's going to be considerably less than that, but that's the amount that I've been requested to approve. I'm sorry, you have a question?
John Early, 5925 Pine Ridge Court. How much does one mailing cost?
I don't have that information. We did a mailing for
The current going rate for a postcard is 34 cents.
Right.
And so if you take 10,000 households, you're looking at about $3,400.
Correct.
And that's just for the postage. That doesn't include printing the paper. If you take 50 cents per postcard from one of the large websites that does such, you're looking at an additional $1,600. So hypothetically, for 10,000 households with postage plus printing, you're looking at
$5,000.
about $5,000.
Right, and that's not counting for any advertisement we might do in any of the local papers.
Newspapers or
Correct.
And that's just postcards, not letters.
Correct. Right. That's postcards, yeah. So we will be extremely frugal, but that was the amount that I was requested to acquire. Yes, sir.
And I don't know the answer to this, but if we're going to utilize a room in the Lakeland High School auditorium, is there a cost that they charge us for that?
That's a good question. We've used it in the past, and I believe it was there was a small fee to cover the staff time to set up and host the sound system.
So we're going to need to be able to cover those costs as well,
Right,
because
which
we
is
won't have another board meeting.
Which I believe is what Sean was probably contemplating, having that involved in this.
Can we roll that purpose into this 10,000,
Sure
Mr.
can.
Supervisor?
I don't see why not. So,
As long as there's enough. If we need 2 mailings, that's the 10 grand. If we
Right.
need more, then we should add a little more in there, not to exceed.
You're also going to have another board meeting in a month. You're going to have 2 mailings in a month?
I think the hope is to get it all with one mailing with all of the dates of these public hearings.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
I think it makes, if it, today you get a nice, postcard and have whatever meeting dates are on it and all description of whatever information. I think one is gonna be, plus it'll be on our website, plus it'll be on the marquee, plus it'll be in the newspaper. We'll put it everywhere we can think of.
Well, and perhaps you can put it in the community calendar in the newspaper. That doesn't cost. That's not advertising.
There you go. Yep. So there's,
Ways to save.
so I would think we're probably fair, I feel fairly
Okay.
confident at 10,000.
So long as we don't specify that this is only for mailings, but it's for,
Advertising.
Advertisement, promotion,
Notification.
communications.
yes.
Communications.
Communications.
Regarding the Civic Center.
Did you put a motion forth, Mr. Supervisor?
I did not put a motion forth. I was just kind of out there fishing for one. So,
Yeah, I'll make the motion if I can.
sure. Please do.
To approve not to exceed $10,000 on communications informing White Lake residents about upcoming town hall meetings for the new campus civic center.
I have a motion, looking for support.
Support.
Support, motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to item 10I. Ms. Smith?
Okay, so it is my understanding, and again, I'm just relaying information here. It's my understanding that the library has emailed supervisor and clerk on August 3rd and 7th, asking to be placed on the August 15th agenda. And so we've decided to discuss the documents that would be needed to prepare bond, and in their email they outlined some things, and Terry will have to jump in here as well. They outlined things that would be needed as a timeline, a budget, a narrative of the project, is supportive documentation needed in order to prepare for the bond. So at this point, I think if we can just discuss or see what is needed to get those things started.
Mr. Roman?
Jerry, has Dickinson Wright actually given us a specific procedure and a list of documents needed?
No.
No, okay. Is that something that you can get from Dickinson Wright?
Can I do that?
Okay.
Do you need anything more from the library to do that? Start that
I
process?
guess I need to find out what documents are going to be needed before asking the library.
I know some documents were supplied when they decided to go on the ballot, so we have some things. There was supportive documentation required.
I'm not sure that I have any of the documents from the library.
Is there anyone here from the library that can speak to that? What's that?
No, Glenn, our board president would be the one who can speak to that.
Okay. Okay, what he outlined in the email was a timeline, a budget, and a narrative of the project. And then I want to clarify that I did attach there to the library board president's 2 emails to supervisor when I assisted them to attempt to get on our agenda. So Rick, you should have these emails because you answered me. So you should have them.
Your email, I answered correct.
But these were not attachments. These were below my email to you, all in one text.
I will have to review that.
Okay, so
Yes,
just
Mr.
to
I do wanna
clarify, you
make a
should have it.
comment on the last email that did come through to my office, and I did respond back to that email. I had been off for several weeks prior to receiving that, and I did reply back to them to let them know that they needed to get a hold of you.
Okay, very good.
So, just so there's no misunderstanding about if I didn't reply back to him, the reason
Actually,
why
I
it
think you
wasn't
copied
replied
me.
to until I returned.
Yeah, I think you copied me on your reply, actually. Okay. Mr. Roman.
So Terry, you're gonna work on a list though?
We will work on a list.
Okay. I just have a comment on the bond request. And for the life of me, Liz, this is the part that I'd like you to relay to the library board
Okay.
on my behalf is eventually, in order for this board to vote on a bond request, we would need to know how much money they're asking for, okay? And now that we're conducting a township campus study,
I believe it was said in the committee meeting today that they're asking for all of it,
right?
8.5.
Okay, so let me give you one example that you can relay to the library board.
Okay.
In one of the most recent library meetings, Mr. Paul asked the library board president, Mr. Rossow,
Okay.
if the library would consider putting the township below their building. Mr. Rossow's answer was yes, they would consider it. Now, if they would consider that, logically speaking, our township is then going to help contribute to the cost of the roof, to the cost of the roads, to the cost of the utilities, the parking lot, everything. Wouldn't then logically the cost and the money that they would need go down? It only makes sense to me that it would. And if that's even a possibility, then this board should not be asked to approve the total of 8.6 million because we don't know how much that cost estimate is going to go down. So if you can relay that to the board,
Sure, I'd be happy to.
that's my concern is how much money are they going to really need? And I don't think until we finish this campus study, anyone's going to know. So that's all.
Well, I believe you had a meeting with the library board treasurer and president, so was any of that discussed? I mean, that.
I don't know specifically if it was discussed with them, but if you can please relay that message to the board, I would appreciate it.
Mr. Powell.
And I have some questions like that as well. I've not, at least personally, seen a detailed construction cost estimate. So I have not seen a budget for their professional fees, all their construction cost estimates. The concern that I would have is that the construction cost would be above and beyond what the amount the people authorized the bonds to be sold for. So I'd be very,
They're within budget. That was said in their presentation at their last meeting. You were there.
No, that was their estimate, but their construction drawings haven't even been started yet. So I've not seen a detailed construction cost estimate, line item, detailed construction cost estimate from their experts. And then I did ask specifically of the library board president, before me personally authorizes the sale of any bonds, I would want to see the operation estimate for the cost to operate this 30,000 square foot building. It would be unconscionable, in my opinion, to build a 30,000 square foot building and then go back to the people and say, oh, you know what, we can't afford to operate this building, therefore you need to give us more money. And so I'd really like to have a detailed construction cost estimate for the building that they're proposing, so that we can make sure that they have it in their budget to operate it.
One quick question for
Yeah.
you. So if the idea became a reality that we would go underneath the library, would it make sense for them to finish their construction drawings now?
No, I would certainly hold off, and this came up with one of the ladies that came up and gave their presentation. If I were on that board, I'd really be questioning spending any more money until they knew how they were going to continue the operation of the existing library and what the construction cost might be. And certainly this study that we're having done, there are going to be potentially 3, 4, or 5 different options that this committee is being asked to look at, and that might greatly change the construction cost estimate that the library is responsible for. So I would hope that the library board would be looking to try to lower their costs to where they didn't have to charge the residents of the township that full amount. If it only costs them 2/3 that amount to build, then I would hope that they wouldn't be asking for the full amount. I think the millage was up to that amount. It didn't say it had to. You had to pay it all. You had to, and so I'd be looking for them to come up with some way to maybe lower those costs a little bit. And this is probably a good time for me to bring this up in that in summer of 2017, the University of Virginia did a study on library sizes, and I have that study here. And they make a very strong case that the spatial needs for libraries has been reduced over the last 10 years, not increased. And so I'd be very interested to get this in the hands of the library board so they could decide how they respond to this University of Virginia study on sizing of libraries.
Well, I can't speak for them, but Michigan Library Association says we need 1 square foot per resident to properly serve residents. So Commerce Township built a 35,000 square foot library. So they're looking at a 30, and I think they said at the last presentation it was just under 30,000 square feet, the current schematic design. So I'm happy to relay these messages to you, or to the library board, and get you some answers as soon as possible. But I just kind of want to pull back a little bit and make sure that we're all going to, take a step forward here of compiling a list of what is needed. We all agree on that. And then from there, that list is going to go to Terry, and then Terry, you're going, what's the process here? Are you going to let the library know? You're going to come back to the board? What can we all expect?
I will have a report for the board for the next meeting.
Okay. And that report will be a list of what is needed, or will you work with the library in the meantime and have things ready by September?
I will contact Pensinski and Wygowski and find out what is required first.
Okay. But can that be worked on in the meantime? So if they tell you
Certainly.
that it's X, Y, and Z, you can start to collect that information or start to work
It
on
can
it?
be relayed to the library, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Just a question. I'm under the understanding that no matter what the estimates are for construction of the building, that at some point of time that they're going to have to go to the planning commission as far as their site plan, curb cuts, and that type of thing. Is that process been started?
That's true.
Well, again, this information is a little premature until this actual Civic Center study is done. So
I guess we're into this discussion now when
this is basically 12 weeks premature. So we need to make sure.
Here's the issue with that though, Rick, is and again, don't shoot the messenger, I'm just relaying the message that, as I understand it when speaking with the library, they anticipated the bonds to be issued in July, so to them it's past due. To you, it's premature. So that's why I was hoping that these things could be at least started and worked upon and be prepared so that there isn't a delay whenever we are ready. So in their mind, it's past due. When this bond went to vote to the public, there was no civic center concept. So that's, it makes it different.
I understand, but the dynamics all changed the day we bought the property next door, and that was no surprise because that's been on the radar for 25 years. So, we are looking at this and looking at this wholly, and we'll continue to look at this wholly. Whether or not there is a separate building or a single building is yet to be determined. Whether it's going to be a shared parking lot or a separate parking lot, these
Right.
are all,
So in the
all of this will be
parallel,
to be determined.
these documents can start to be prepared.
We can do a gathering of information, which is what Mr. Lilly has offered to do. Okay, so Excuse me, yes.
Roger Harrington, 2240 Wigan Lane. I think the concept that we looked at this morning or this afternoon when we met with the township in terms of the library board township was that at some point there's going to be a library built. Whether it's going to be on our 6 acres or whether it's going to be on your 25 acres. In other words, obviously I've not talked about this with the library board, but if you picked up that design in that parking lot and stuck it over on the 20 acres, obviously you could have some kind of a common entry point. You could maybe share their parking if another building was going to be backed up to that parking lot that they're proposing that. What I think that the board should do to alleviate all the anger that's going on in this township over this issue, why not satisfy a heck of a lot of people and say, we'll begin this process, as opposed to wait until 12 weeks from now. Because I think 12 weeks from now, what's going to come out is that, fine, we're going to have a library. But maybe it's not going to be on that 6-acre site. This may be going to be on your 20-acre site. Why not start the process of the bond issuance right now in terms of gathering all this stuff together and moving forward? Why do you want to wait until the 12 weeks are over and then say, oh, now we're going to start a bond issue? You don't even know how you're going to bond it yourself.
I don't think that, maybe I didn't make myself clear. I don't think it's a matter of waiting 12 weeks to gather this information, of which Mr. Lilly has said he's going to do. It would be a period of time before I believe this board would be ready to consider a vote. That's what I think that boils down to.
But it would be nice to have that vote, let's say, sometime towards the end of that process. You know, if the board is saying, we've already got the thing designed, okay, we're ready to go out for bids in December, we want to start construction in March of this coming year. Is this delay going to change that? It isn't going to change the fact that there's going to be a library. It's probably going to change the fact of where that library is going to be located and to what degree the rest of the township is going to share certain aspects of that library. Thank you.
Thank you. Good points.
May I say something? Just real brief.
Denise.
I would like permission to talk to the bond attorney. Last time we tried to talk to him, I was told that I couldn't talk to him until Terry said it was okay.
If I can just answer.
Please.
The library's attorney.
Not the library's attorney.
I understand that, but the library's attorney and the township's attorney already exchanged correspondence.
This is before.
But you.
The reason why I'm asking, we just want to start the process. I can't even talk to the attorney to figure out exactly what the process is. He asked for a meeting between myself, the library board, and Terry, the attorney, Mr.
Wygoski.
And permission wasn't granted, that no meeting was scheduled, and it went into la la land like we're doing right now. All I want to do is be able to talk to him to find out what we need to do. Most of what I understand, it's primarily on the township side that has to do all of the legalities. We've already supplied much of the financial information. There's a couple other items. We've already supplied it. We just need to get moving so we can pay our bills. We don't necessarily have to continue with the same building project, but we have people that we've already contracted with expect payment based on a July 1st bond issuance.
I understand. Mr. Lee will start to gather that information and start to orchestrate that as he has offered.
Okay, so am I going to be able to talk to the attorney?
Mr. Lilly is the clerk. I would let that clerk make that decision. Okay? He handles those affairs.
Oh. I object to that, but
So Terry, do you have any problem with the library talking directly to them so there's no miscommunication, so they get, you know,
The
firsthand
bonding
knowledge?
attorney has indicated that the bonds are responsibility of the township and not the library.
Okay. So would you mind then, once you get the list, to give it directly to the library so that everyone's on the same page
have
of
any
what
problem with that.
documents are needed? I think that's all she's looking for, that she's.
And maybe I
has
missed it, but I thought
correct
Terry said that from
information.
the beginning, that he would get the information and he
I
would.
think he said he'd give it back to the board. I think Denise.
We asked for it back in April.
Well, but you're here now.
I'm
and
here
we're-
now,
and-
yes, it's August.
And it's on the agenda as a discussion item.
And Terry said he would do it.
And Terry said he would
for
do
the
it.
next meeting, next month. So why keep, this is just a phone call to Mr. Wagowski to get the information. Is it not supposed to take a 2 to 3 month period for this whole process? Right, Terry?
I told the board that I would contact the bonding attorney and the financial advisor as soon as possible. I will relay that information to you.
One meeting going on here, please. Okay. So you're going to follow through?
I will contact them tomorrow.
Very good.
So to make the library feel a little bit better, could we put a little parameter of time or approximate, like, could you get back to them and maybe at least within 2 weeks so that if they need to supply anything else, they have time to get it, and then all our ducks in a row for your report back to the board in September?
I
Can
think
we
you,
put some
you've
loose-
carried the message from the library board like you said you were, and it's up to the clerk of the township to follow that process like he always does on every bond sale that we have in the township. So my suggestion is, since I don't know anything about it and you don't know anything about it, let's let the experts determine how that's done.
We appreciate you talking about it tonight, we really do.
Right.
This is a major step, so thank you very much. Just would like some information, and we still want to work with you guys, we really do. We want to build this building like we told the public we would, or we want the best thing for the township and for the people that voted for this library. We want to give them what they voted for when we said we'd do it, and it's not happening.
Okay, very good. Mr. Roman?
To me, all of this campus, this entire issue, as well as the bonding process, it's kind of all intermingled. And I know I had mentioned, Denise, to Glenn and Joe of the library board that I would investigate the legality of the township possibly loaning money to the library. And I just want to make a comment for you to pass on to that board that we've found no statutory law that specifically allows a loan. If the library attorneys can cite such statutory law, then I welcome the library to make a formal request to our board. So we can pass that information on.
For next meeting. And this is a couple months now that we've been talking
Yep.
about this too, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think that was only discussed and talked about because you had suggested that as something to explore, that maybe the township could be helpful, but then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So it just doesn't work out.
We have other
Miss-
options, but we'd rather not do something.
I understand. I didn't want to wait on that
I
information.
appreciate it, because we were wondering.
that's
Because
we didn't want-
I know you were wondering.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Lilly?
Again, my question was, are they going to be required to go to the planning commission?
There's
Site
going to be
plan
a process of
approval.
which they are going to have to go through,
And if
correct?
that is true, it's going to change, most likely, the cost estimates that are going to be provided by the library that are going to have to be redone in order to proceed with the bond issue. So, just
I
wanna make
believe
that
they
clear.
already have a meeting scheduled, is what I was told, that it's
The
soon.
documents are due to the planning commission next week.
Okay. Well, that'll be part of the process. So. Very good. Anything else to add to that? Okay, moving on to item 11, old business. Whoop, I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry. Please. Yes.
I'm Dennis Seams, a 9095 satellite. What I've heard tonight was that the vote was held last year, and to this night, we still don't know what's required for the bond. It seems to me that the board could have at least found out what was necessary for the library board to present to the bond attorneys before this evening. That strikes me as a dereliction of your duty. Secondly, the site you talked about had been talked about for 25 years, but I believe the township also bought other sites as possible locations for a civic center or a township hall. So it hasn't been a laser focused, excuse me, on that particular site. And Mr. Powell, I think you've suggested that you can't do anything until there are the detailed drawings, and you also said if you were the library, you'd stop spending money. I don't see how those are compatible. How can you get the detailed drawings for free?
No, you can do a very detailed construction cost estimate on the design drawings, not the construction drawings. So there's a
Somebody has to do that.
We already have it, so.
And I'm sorry, you must have come in later because I said I've not seen a line item construction cost estimate. And so that's what I said, so.
Okay, I did come in later, I apologize.
Okay,
Yes, it is.
Mr. Roman.
Liz, another question for the library board and maybe for Denise. So you're saying the library is going to come for site plan approval soon?
Yes.
Okay, so like as Mr. Harrington brought up, maybe it's a possibility that we do a combined building and put the township under the library and move that site. If that's a possibility, I don't understand why the library board would come now with a preliminary site plan. That's spending money. It's taking time. I don't understand.
It's already been contracted with these architects to do it. We would be liable to pay them.
So you're saying the plans can't change? You signed contracts
No,
that can't
they-
be changed?
No, they could be changed, they could be altered.
Okay,
Yes,
they could be altered.
yes.
I think maybe what Mr. Roman's talking about, when you submit to the Planning Commission, the township engineer reviews it, the township planner reviews it, staff approves it, it goes out for bid, it goes out to the general public for public notification for site plan approval.
Yes.
All of that is additional funds that the library would be responsible for, and if it's all going to, if it could possibly even change,
Why would you
that
stop?
money is wasted. That's what I think Mr. Roman was
Thank you,
talking
Mr.
about.
Powell.
Yes.
I just have can I say something?
Mr.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Would the township be opposed to, there's 30,000 square feet, would they be opposed to go downstairs in that building?
That's one of the options we're looking
Okay,
at.
so why, I mean, I think that's a great option. If you got 30,000, you're in the same building, you're gonna save, let's say it's an $8 million building.
Right.
That's $4 million you're gonna save the taxpayers. That makes sense. What's so hard about this?
Well, we're waiting for the study committee to come up with their options.
I understand
So
that, but let them do their due diligence and move forward with it. I mean,
Right.
it just makes sense.
that's what we're doing.
And I hate watching everybody up here get beat up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Yes, Denise.
Problem is, we asked the voters for a certain building in a certain location. Now we're going to
I
have a
understand that.
municipal
I
building.
understand that.
It's kind of like a bait and switch. So we're trying not to.
No, it's not. No, it's saving us money. It's real
But-
simple.
But,
No, it's saving us money.
Okay,
If they're
I
willing to
understand.
go upstairs or downstairs and you're upstairs,
we have.
it's a 30.
I
I
understand.
myself think it's a great idea. I don't know
I
about anybody
understand.
else. It's saving
It is
$4
a good
million.
idea. It would be a good idea.
And let them get, if they're spending $45,000 on an independent study for consultants, let that information come and then everybody can look at that and do the right thing for the taxpayers.
We are.
Well, I don't see that. I see a bunch of arguing and not giving
The
them a chance
first
to do
committee
that.
meeting was today.
Okay,
So that consultant process is just started today.
so let's let them. do
And the
their due
library was
diligence.
there with open minds, exploring it. It was a good meeting. So that's just starting.
I mean, I think it's great that you won't go to any other city. I know that, working for a city, you're gonna find the township offices are willing to go downstairs and put the library first. You won't see it.
There is a legal problem as well. We asked the voters for a certain building, a single building. You put another
Denise, I hate to correct you, but it's not in the language. It's just a thought process.
Right.
I'm not gonna get there into this conversation.
There's
All
lots
right.
involved, it's not, there's lots involved. There's legal.
Everybody's working hard on both ends.
Yeah. We gotta get it done. Okay, excuse me. One question out there. Go
It's
ahead.
not a question, it's a comment.
Comment.
I've been following this forever, investigating it forever. Didn't you know that? And so does
You
Larry.
didn't even know about it before.
Okay, whatever. My point is this, you won the bond by 4 voters. 4, not 20, not 50, 4. We have found time and time again the misappropriation of funds, which you don't recognize, which we are laughed at your board meeting, which I'm sure the State Department's gonna love, number one. Number two, in terms of your spending, you can stop the spending. It's right here. It was brought to the attention of the board. Everybody knew it, including Liz. It was a piece of paper it's right here. Do you want to see it? It's right there.
Oh, I know, that was prepared for Mike.
That's right, and I FOIA'd it. My point is, you can stop the spending. You can stop the bleeding right now. You won't have to close any doors. It's a choice that you're making, that you're putting upon the residents of White Lake. And you're bringing to this board and beating them up on. It's nobody's fault as to what's occurred, except the library board. Am I blaming you? No. Am I blaming Larry? No. To get your board under control, that's what you need to do.
You gotta remember legacy costs at the township. It's
Okay,
real simple math.
excuse me.
There's one.
Excuse me, Mr. Noble. Okay.
Just FYI, our bonding attorney has assured us that we can combine a township hall and a library into one building legally and still levy a millage. It can be done.
2 millages?
Yes.
If need be?
Yes. If
How much-
need be.
How much legal need be? I'd like to know more about that.
Well, we have options.
I would like to know, we would like to know what that is.
Yeah, I can't get into those now because until this township campus study is completed,
We're not gonna speculate.
well, we can't.
I refuse to speculate. I'd rather have the information that I think can process and make an intelligent decision from. So everything else is just that, speculation.
And just so the residents know that the end of the study is scheduled to be completed about the first week in November. That's the 14 weeks, so just giving a heads up of when there might be answers.
Very good. Okay, I'd like to move along to the final order of business. No. Oh, all right, go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The one thing that we have to be cognizant of, though, is if we had 2 millages in one building, you have a lot of legal work that has to be involved in making sure that we don't commingle funds and use facilities that are for the library, for the township. If that happens, we could not, possibly not get tax exempt status for our bonds. Therefore, it would cost more money for what we want to do. So that
I'm
is
sure
an
all
issue.
that would be looked into, and that
And
would be
that would
part of the
cost-
due diligence of the bond.
And that would cost the
attorneys.
library more money, which we did not budget for. So, that's another issue.
Very good, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to move on to item number 11, old business, second reading amendment to the fee ordinance 129, section 22, 30, 31, and 32. Counselor?
This is the last reading and hopeful adoption of a fee ordinance amendment that was requested from the sewer, treasurer, assessing, and police departments.
Okay. Any questions from the board members on this particular fee ordinance schedule? Okay. I have reviewed this myself, and I find it to be in line with what was previously discussed. So are we moving this on to adoption?
Yep, someone needs to make a motion to adopt.
Looking for that motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we adopt ordinance number 129, amendments to the fee ordinance as represented.
I have a motion to adopt. Looking for support.
Support.
I have support from Mr. Lilly. Motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Thank you very much. We have come to the point of our meeting where we're looking at trustee comments. And Andrea, I will let you go first.
Great. September 26th from 10 to 3 at Highland Rec, which is a state of Michigan park, but it is also White Lake Park. They are having an 1860s style exhibition game. Summer foods and beverages, live music, and vintage Model A cars. I know a lot of us have the state park pass right in our on our vehicle, so just utilize that on, like I said, August 26th from 10 to 3. The premier festival of White Lake Township, Fist Farm Fall Festival. I say premier because it's the only one per se. And the best one is September 9th and 10th from 10 to 5. It's the Saturday after Labor Day. We still could use some volunteers in the food and beverage area, which I help out in. So if you're willing to help out, contact us or anyone in the Historical Society. And I can't forget to talk about one of my favorite people in White Lake that just recently died, Rose Osborne, the woman across the street in the brown house, 94 years old. I consider her one of the original supporters of the fire department. When the fire department was where the planning department and the water department was when the fire station was there. She was one of the people that actually, in a sense, was like the original 911 operator. She had one phone in her house that was a landline for her own personal use, and the other landline was for the fire calls. Cool. I've heard that story a million times, and she was cool. I just recently learned, too, that she was one of the original Rosies. So I was just like, really? I'm Rosie the Riveter in the Parades, and I was like, dude, really? I knew this person, and I didn't know that side of her. So she was really a near later lady than I even knew her, and I've known her, or she's known me probably my entire life. So, but she was a great lady. Rest in peace, Rose Osborne. Great lady.
Cool. Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Okay. Well, I'll wrap up the library information here. There was the committee meeting today, the first one for the consultants, as we mentioned, and the end date to that committee finding should be the first week of November. As mentioned before, to keep your eye out for postcards coming soon in the mail to every resident of when the dates will be for the public forums, as well as we'll try to get it out on whatever social media we have. The township doesn't have a Facebook, but I'm sure we can use Police and Fire and Parks and Rec and Library and all that good stuff. So tell your neighbors and friends and family in White Lake so that the word spreads. The library's next meeting, and hopefully it'll be at Lakeland High School. That's the plan as of now, but it's all tentative at the moment. The next meeting for the library board will be Wednesday, August 23rd at 6:45. They always meet in the lower level. The last meeting was July 26th, and if anybody is interested, that library board meeting was videotaped, and it's on the township website and the library website. A presentation was given, a very detailed presentation of the building, and so if anyone's interested in what the building will look like or the use and things like that, it was a good presentation, so that's available for you to view. The library reading program was last Saturday. It was a big success. That was the celebration for the summer reading program. The library, of course, will be at Fisk Farm Festival, and they have a book sale. If you've never been, it's a wonderful event. It's very homey and quaint, and it is fun for all ages. The Donut Dash for the police department will be Saturday, September 9th at 8:30 a.m. $25 for participants. I believe children are 5. I think I was like the first to sign up. I'm so excited. It's fun, but we need more people to come and get a T-shirt and a little goodie bag, and you get to socialize with our fine police department, and it's really fun. You can walk it. It's for all ages. You don't have to be a runner. Rick and I met with Faith in Action, and that was a pleasure We talked about how we might be able to be supportive to that program. I don't know if you remember, she came last board meeting and talked about home repair for seniors. So we're going to look into that a little bit more and try to be supportive there. And I just want to thank Parks and Rec and Planning Department for putting together such a great binder. This is a lot of work. This was a lot of work, and it's great. Plan here, and if anyone wants to see mine afterwards, I'm happy to share it. And I want to thank the residents that came to the workshop that gave input for that. That was really great. And I don't think I have anything else. I think that's about it. I think I covered everything, so thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Mr. Lilly, are you back in your house? So
Back in my house, back to work.
okay, all right.
I'd just like to make a comment on Rose. As Andrea said, she was a great dispatcher back in the early 60s when I first got on the department, and those ladies spent a lot of time dedicated during the day to answer that telephone. So, and I remember as Ashley, one of my secretaries, warned me when I was elected clerk that Rose is also part of our absentee ballot committee and part of our board, and Rose was always instrumental in the first half hour. They had to decide the menu for election day, and then we got into election business. So Rose was quite a lady. She always remember her. So Planning Commission, I'd like to be notified when the library files for site plan approval. I'm just going to guess and say that there are going to be some conflicts between the information that's going to be requested from the library when that site plan issue is looked at. So, but I will communicate with you and let you know
Thank you.
what those are. I was not prepared for the library discussion tonight.
I don't think any of us knew that was coming.
Would rather keep my comments to myself at the present time, but I will communicate with Benzinski and Wygowski and let that information be known. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly. Mr. Roman.
Has anyone mentioned this yet?
I was
It's
gonna
on the
get to
agenda.
that.
Oh.
It's on the agenda, but
All
that's
right.
okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to let the residents know, mark your calendars. September 30th is our hazardous waste drop-off date. It'll take place between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on September 30th in the Kohl's parking lot, as we did last year. You can bring all your oil-based paint, solvents, aerosols, pesticides, basically anything that you know shouldn't be put in a garbage can, and it can be dropped off over at Kohl's.
What was the time?
9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Wow, even appliances, is that right, Rick? You can
I
drop
believe
off
they have like certain electronics.
microwaves,
Microwaves, air
appliances.
conditioners.
I didn't know that.
Those are unacceptable.
Yeah, those are
waste.
That's
Oh,
unacceptable.
that's
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong side.
Okay, so the acceptables were the,
Let's pull it over here.
thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
There you go.
Otherwise, you could bring your radioactive waste, too.
Okay. Yeah, so
Smoke
does
detectors.
the lamps, batteries, propane cylinders. These are all acceptable. Mercury, automotive fluids, pesticides, corrosives, acids, aerosols, oil-based paint. So
Will that be on the website, Mike?
Should be. Yep.
I think it is.
It is already on. It should be
Oh,
already
it's on?
on there. Okay.
Are they going to ask for ID? Last year, I
Yes,
remember
typically,
they did.
yeah, typically they will ask for your driver's license, so don't forget your driver's license at home. You're not supposed to be driving without it. I'm sure the chief would have something to say about that. Okay. You have something?
I'm all set, thanks.
Mr. Powell?
Just a couple things that I didn't know before the last couple days, and maybe the township can help out. I was made aware that disabled American veterans can apply for a property tax exemption in this state. Didn't know that, so if you know anyone out there that with
If they're 100%.
if they're 100% disabled, okay, thank you for that clarification. Okay. And then also, if you watched this entire board meeting, you noticed that we passed the CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funds that the township can use to help less able people to fix their houses up. But there's also another opportunity for those that qualify, and that's the Oakland County Housing Development. And if you meet a certain income, you can obtain loans through the county to replace your septic system, or to have some major household repairs, or connect to the sanitary sewer, things like that. And it's a lien against your house, but you don't have to pay it back. I think it's a zero interest loan, and you don't have to pay it back until you sell. And so it's a very good program at Oakland County, and hopefully somebody can take advantage of that in an emergency need. And that's it.
Thank you. Well, you know, with the passing of a senior citizen who is 94 years young,
Yep.
it's really kind of a little piece of our history that we've lost. And one of the things that's very important is to remember where we came from, because that's what makes us what we are today. Learn by the mistakes that we make in the past so we don't make them in the future. One of the important things, though, is to preserve our history in any way that we can. So in saying that, I would like to make sure that folks know out there that the Historical Society is always looking for new members, and preferably some younger blood, because it is nice to have that enthusiasm out there. And you can make a difference in your community by being involved. And there are a lot of different ways. You know, just being at the Fisk Farm when the Christmas tree lighting event is on, it is just an amazing event to see these kids just light up, and all the activity and the people. And you know, last year, I mean, it was great the way that we had it. It was a great job that
It's
you
like
did,
you're
Liz.
somewhere else in time.
So,
It's great.
Yeah. So that it set up the gates, and then everybody kind of came in at one time. It was really a nice setting. So we're very fortunate to have the history behind us, and what our future goes forward will be talked about as history in 25, 30, 40, 50 years from now. So the decisions that we make on this Civic Center project and what we do for our community, we're casting a die. This building was cast in the 30s or 40s, I think, when it was originally built. It has been a township hall since the 60s or so, late 50s, 60s, Terry, something like that. So, you know, we've got a lot of use out of it, but it's time, and we've evolved for us to move on into a better direction. So if we all work together, and we can have some common mindset and some thought processes that were brought forth as there has been before, and maybe a version of something may happen. I don't believe there's any hurdle that we can't get through. We put a man on the moon in 1969. I think we can figure out how to build a municipal complex. So with that, I say thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see all the folks with their goodies at the household waste, because, you know, we do live in the majority of our community in a wellhead protection area. So we really don't like that stuff to get out in the yard or be, you know, put in the trash that could leak or anything, get into a landfill. So necessary. So I certainly thank you for that, and we are going to go into executive session now. And I'd like to make a motion to move into executive session in accordance with MCL 15.268H.
Support.
A motion and support, a roll call vote.
Andrea Voorhees,
Yes.
Liz Smith,
Yes.
Mike Paul,
Yes.
Scott Ruggles is absent, Mike Roman,
Yes.
Mr. O'Leary votes yes, Mr. Colwell.
Yes. And we will take a 10-minute recess.